welcome all. I figured I could try to motivate people. I'd be willing to bet $1 that not every single person in this meeting right now uses, VS Code or Sublime or any of these more modern, convenient editor IDEs experiences to author their Wolfram language code. And if I could get one person to be interested and have a better experience authoring their code, then this will have been a success. So I will be showing how easy it is to set things up. It's very easy. And just what I picked VS Code just because it's more prevalent and colorful, but a lot of the same stuff applies to Sublime and other editors as well, to lesser extents. But anyway, and then I did want to talk about new features that people may not be familiar with, that are still being prototyped. And I don't know if I'll be showing anything like that in the actual talk, but this is more of an internal talk, so I'll be showing that. And then kind of showing something completely new that has not been talked about, but a new Packlet for instrumenting Wolfram language code, building upon all of the other stuff that I've been developing and showing what's possible with that. So yeah, people, I mean, feel free to interrupt and ask questions and things. This is pretty loose, but yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions already off the bat, like what VS Code is. May not be able to get into minutia like that, but VS Code is a very nice, modern editor. You can just get it and you write code. It's a text editor, it's all very nice. So I wanted to show people, this is the out of the box experience. This currently, if everyone can see my screen down in the lower right-hand corner, thinks this is an Objective-C file out of the box. Not great, but what we've been developing over the last several years is a new extension. So if you just go over to the left, click on the extensions, you just type in Wolfram. We do have a blue check mark. We are investigating getting, being the recommended extension. Anyway, blue check mark, Wolfram research, just click install. Installing it, super easy. This is actually installed now. This is what shows up if you wanted to read a little bit more about it. But switching over, you will see lots of nice colors, squiggly lines all of a sudden magically started showing up down in the right-hand corner. It thinks the file is now Wolfram, so that's good. Lots of cool stuff showing up now. So that's how easy it is. And what this does, this is only working because I have an installation, or I might already have settings, I can't remember, but if you have things in the default location on your machine, installed Mathematica or Wolfram Engine, things are just going to work, and you're going to get this, and you're going to get syntax highlighting, and you're going to get linting, and you're going to get squiggly lines. And I've turned on way more warnings than the normal person would care to be seeing. But I hate implicit times with a passion, and so I turn on everything. Asterisks everywhere is my motto. But yeah, so some of these are not, they're warning, they're not actual errors, but I've turned on everything. Just using patterns on the right-hand side of rule and not rule delayed, may or may not be a problem, don't know. But it's just guessing. And what is, oh, actually, oh yeah, so you actually are using it. So SNS, yeah, so maybe it's maybe you use rule delayed, whatever. And so what this is just a big collection of patterns that I've been developing over the last several years with linting, the Packlet called Code Inspector, talked about before and stuff. So we'll not be diving into details, but yeah, you just get this. And when there is a fix, there could even be a suggestion for what to do. I mean, obviously I could put in rule delayed. Actually, I should do that as a possible fix, but so in this example code, So sometimes people mix up which and switch, and you accidentally do this kind of stuff. And so should probably be true, and you just do that and everything's great, and you're fixing your code and it's great. And your text editor from 50 years ago that you're typing in that doesn't have any of this, you're writing bugs for no reason, and it's just terrible. And I want everyone to write fewer bugs and to write better code, and these are tools to do that. So some other features for VS Code, though, that is not necessarily for writing better code. They're just kind of cool. You can see that when there are color literals, you can actually see what the color swatch is. Yeah. And I don't know, it's of limited usefulness. Apparently super popular with JavaScript, hex, color. So people threw that into the standard. So I just figured, why not?
Well,
yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah, it's a front-end language.
yeah, so it's interesting because you could think you could have so many other kinds of literals though too for us, if you could actually control that. Like you maybe I don't know if people have seen, what are those you see little graphs maybe on the command line sometimes, spark graphs or spark line or something like that. I can't, tiny little tiny plots. And so if I did graphics of disk, how is it possible that there could be a little black circle on the left here in some sense? Like I don't know. Anyway, just to make sure, especially with icons, that we have in a lot of places, it's hard to get an understanding of if you have the right icon or not, because you can't see it. So I don't know, it'd be cool, but it's only colors in the standard now for now, apparently. So anyway, can't control that. Although I guess maybe we could even modify the VS Code side of things. Maybe we might even be able to add icons, maybe through a lot more work. But anyway, yeah. So this is still, let me switch over to the actual, yeah. So there are some cool features. You see all these problems down here, but also, the entire file has an outline that you can look at. And these are where errors and warnings are. Again, not real errors and warnings, but just what I have turned on. So you can quickly navigate the entire file, and our files get huge. So it's, very useful to be able to have an outline like that. So, yeah, just going over that. Oh yeah, and I didn't really, we've hooked up the documentation, the usage messages. And so you get all of the nice linear syntax rendered. Nothing's really, I'm trying to look for italics, although maybe that is italics. Sometimes it's really obvious that something was like rendered with fancy. Yeah, I mean, I guess those are italics, but yeah, just using the usage messages directly, so you can just hover and get all that. So it's really nice. And if you have just in the same file, if you added this, whatever 1 2 3, if you hover over thing, you get the usage message of the function that you're that you entered yourself. So can be really convenient for that kind of thing. So
Brenton, is this file based or project based?
Just file, because it'd be really nice to have a notion of projects. And I don't mean just here, but I mean, in the front end, in the sense of, in any sense, anywhere. I mean, obviously the workbench does have sense of project. And so I have not yet created the sense of what a Wolfram language project would be yet. And everything's a file. I can work with that. There's, that's uncontroversial. But if we did start thinking about what a project is, to be able to look at other files, and you start, well, what exactly is a project? What is it that we're doing? Is it just things in the same directory? I mean, maybe that would be the simplest thing to think about, but kind of limiting. So how do you manage your path to look at other quote unquote projects? And it kind of, how do you know what to do? How do you know where to look, and how do you manage, and how do you do all? And just these are just questions. I've kept it simple so far, but it is kind of limiting to just stay within the same file. So it would be very nice to have across multiple files, but it is there are questions to be answered about what the design for that would be. So, but in the front end and other places as well, it'd be very nice to have a project, the idea of a project too. So yeah.
So
so
Brenton, for
nice.
what it's worth, we're already in 13.3, and even just beginning to touch on this now, but nothing that you'll see in 13.2, but we're already beginning to look at things like how you deal with pathing on a potentially notebook by notebook basis, and questions which are deeply related to how might you construct a project environment. So there's fruitful discussion to be had between us there.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's interesting.
Sticking to this to vscode, like I know that Sublime has a concept of open file and folders. Beside the concept of project per se, that you can create and add folders to the project, but when you do search all, it searches among all the stuff that you have there in the bar, the workspace. So can LSP use this open workspace to find the usage? Like it has go-to definition.
Sure, possibly. I haven't looked into it. Language server protocol that this is built upon does have the sense of a workspace, and it might be the exact same idea of a workspace that VS Code has, which would be not very surprising, since they're both products of Microsoft, and this is the flagship implementation of language server protocol. And so, yeah, I would assume you could, but I haven't done it though. So yeah, but yeah, so whole workspace and folders and projects and everything. So yeah. So I don't know if there are any questions, but I strongly, very, very strongly encourage people to give VS Code and even Sublime and even other editors that have this kind of support, give it a try. There's no gotcha. I mean, you could turn off syntax highlighting if you don't want it, I guess, but yeah, I mean, being able to warn about common problems that you run into, being able to fix and see and manage and extend the code that you're working with easier. I mean, I think it's nothing but a win. It's nothing but a good thing. So yeah, so highly encourage all that. And internally, they're like, just if you go to stash in the COD for Code Tools project, it's where it's basically the same README files that show up. So you could, if you wanted to, there are other settings and things you could play around with. So you can just read that. I'm not showing Sublime, but it's basically the same kind of setup too. Doesn't have as many other features, but yeah. So check all this stuff out. And if you even install it from this method that I said, you'll get automatic updating when new versions are pushed. And so I will be pushing updates for Sublime and VS Code, just minor little things, but there will be a new update of the extension, but we don't update the extensions very often because just not a lot changes. We update the actual packlets implementing all of the cool stuff, more often. So, but it is nice to update the extensions themselves so that you don't, so that this, this last released, doesn't fall back much, it's already back in July Oh yeah, so and I talked about all this last year at the tech conference too, if people wanted to check that out too. So highly encourage everyone to check all this stuff out. No reason not to. It's all, it's available on all major platforms. Check it out, please, please, please. Let's write better code for everyone. So.
Brenton, you say you customize it, you turn everything on. Can you show how to do that?
I think, yeah. Ignore all of these comments. I go through a lot of stuff. But basically, you can change the actual command line command that gets run to start the server. And it's normally, do I even have the, yeah, it's normally just saying, start server. But if you set all these flags here and you change the, this is just what I do. And I log everything. I log everything to that directory. And this is like the confidence level for the linter to give, nothing below that confidence. So obviously 0 is showing everything. Not documented, and I would even like to move away from having that be an option, but it's kind of weird. But yeah, so this is just what I do currently. There's a UI. If everything is declared and cleaned up a little bit, you can actually just have settings showing up graphically.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could imagine just settings to control all of that in a nicer,
so you can have like an input field for integers.
Yeah.
Just type it. Okay.
Yeah, and it's all like kind of you can see that there are check marks versus paths and versus more structured arrays and stuff. I guess you have to edit in the actual file, but yeah, I mean, so the interesting thing though is if you could ever have, so like with the formatter, Stephen also wanted a setting of airiness, quote unquote airiness, for whatever that, so for some value of what airiness means. And you could adjust that, but it's a cool demo in the front end in a notebook to hook up a slider to it to see code getting formatted more or less airy. And I don't think that you could do that interactively here, but if you could just have there's no, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you could just have a slider here, that would also be nice to have a range, but I don't think they have anything like that. I think that'd be a little bit asking for a bit much from them. So anyway, but yeah, this is, unfortunately, you have to like hard code, what you want here. So that's just what it is right now. So normally you wouldn't have to change any of this. And if you did, you'd normally only have to change the path to the kernel that you're using. If you have it installed in some weird location, you could change the command if you wanted to, but mess with whatever you want. But it's also very fiddly and easily broken. So anyway, I was glad I was able to get away with being able to use Wolfram kernel executable on all 3 platforms, because Windows, it has its own window and blah, blah, blah. So you can kind of say no icon, which doesn't mean anything on other platforms, but this is just what it is on all 3 platforms. So it's all very nice and uniform. So maybe a bit goofy that you have to say all of this right now, but so in the standalone, there's a working group in ECE working on standalone applications. And I think Chris Cooley is even going to be talking about something at the conference. And the first major example of developing a standalone application is this LSP server work. And so I will not go into any more detail. You will have to listen to Chris talking about it, but yeah, so we'll be able to be running LSP server executable, however it'll look in the future. maybe even cleaner in some sense too. Anyway, yep. So yep. Cool. All right. Yeah, so that's that. So I wanted to also talk a little bit about new features that are being added to code tools that are kind of highly visible. So let me create this notebook, and Zoom stuff is in the way. Okay. So I don't know who is already familiar with, oh, I just copied, there we go. So this analyze cell menu item has existed for a version or two now. And this evaluate, analyze notebook, and analyze cells has existed for a version or two. So just quickly showing people, I think the kernel has to start for a second. Yeah. So, you see this little attached cell being shown here, and it's warning you giving you the same warnings that I was showing before. So this exists, and you can play around with it. A similar thing. It's like, oh, I meant to say true. Oh, I can just click that, and hey, look at that. I just fixed my code in the notebook. How cool is that? That's pretty cool. So this has been in a version or two. So what we're developing now, oh, I guess I don't need to even evaluate. Well, I could have showed, don't know why that was just, yeah, okay, maybe things are loading. Anyway, so this is from an example. I don't know, I'm just grabbing random examples from error messages. But you'll see I gave, wrong kind of distance. That's what that message is. But you'll see in this little button that has, I turned all this on. This is what that prototype is. You're not going to see this in normal builds right now. But it's like, oh, maybe something happened. Oh, maybe I should click on that. And you see it's a similar kind of interface showing, but it's highlighting the thing that the message is talking about, for better being able to focus on the actual code, the actual buggy code that you're concerned about. So what this is, for certain messages, not all messages, but for certain messages, you're going to get that little button that analyze input for issues. And my goal is to only have that show up when you could be saying something about the code. That, I don't want the situation, you click on it and then just nothing happens. Like that's useless. And so as a very first rough draft, what I've done is just go through the 8,500 messages in error message.m systematically, but still went through them and was actually fixing typos as I ran into them, which is insane. But and seeing, just by analyzing the text of the error message, knowing, hard coding which positional argument the message is talking about. And so I know when it's this message, whatever the, spatial media, geodist, whatever, I know it's talking about the value of the distance function option. And so I can look and, just highlight that. So this is really, it's not giving you any new information. It's not actually doing analysis, but, this is a very good first draft, just showing you what the idea would be. But in the future, what should be done is even more analysis and showing you, I'm even trying to come up with examples where you get a message and you say analyze, and Code Inspector does its whole big thing, and it comes back and highlights something like this, but like not just based on what the message was saying, but based on some deeper analysis. So I'm still, working on developing all the technology for that. So you could imagine if this was taking up an entire page of code, this is maybe more educational for, helping users. All of this just being one single line examples, maybe not communicating, the exact usefulness, but yeah. So anyway, so this is being worked on. We'll just be getting better and better. I mean, and the goal might be eventually, maybe it's just turned on for all messages in some sense. Like maybe we get into a situation where we could say something intelligent about every kind of message that happened. I don't know. I don't think it'll be every message, but we could get very close. If it's not every message, it might be messages that anyone's ever going to get. It might be, I can't say anything intelligent about this symbol that it's been obsoleted for the last 20 years, and I don't know how to get this message. That doesn't matter. So I'm not going to, work too hard to try to come up with an example for that. But so anyway, so yeah, thinking about messages, because so this is fundamentally different than just the static analysis that has existed so far before, because this is kind of now it's runtime information. We have a kind of a weird, not perfect, but we have some kind of stack trace. We have information about what actually happened. And so we're kind of doing more forensic analysis. And yeah, what's possible with more forensic analysis? After something went wrong, what can you say given that information? So yeah. So working on that. So that's exciting. I don't know if I'll be showing this at the tech conference, but I hate tempting it's like, hey, look at this cool thing we're working on. You can't use it, but this is what we're working on. We don't know when you'll be able to use it, but so anyway, yeah. So that's that. So I don't know if there were any questions or not. But yeah, cool. Okay, so then completely switching gears, I wanted to talk about instrumenting code. This is work derived from a Packlet that is just developed alongside Code Parser and Code Inspector and Code Formatter, but is just a lot more experimental and has received a lot less polish so far, but it's shiny and new. Yeah, so I have that open. Okay, good. So there is some documentation, and I can run through. I think I have. Yeah, let me just. Okay, actually, make sure it's loaded. So I just want to. I'm going to run and just show. Okay, so it should be, and then it's the coverage. Okay. So what I'm doing is, okay. So imagine that you have this file. It has some code in it, and it's all pretty easy to understand. But I want to get an understanding of the coverage of this code. If I'm running, let's say I have a test suite, I want to see how much, actually gets executed. What I just did by running this command was transform this file into this file. Largely the same structure, but you'll see a lot more stuff added. Whatever that is, whatever this is, whatever all these parentheses are, all pretty random looking. But what this is having gone through and rewritten that file and actually instrumented all of these functions for various, obviously, function is telling you that there's a function there, and line is telling you, line, not rocket science here. But, and so basically there's knowledge now in this file for communicating when you run, and you can just run this, you can get on this just like you could before. And what this will do is, well, I guess if you don't even have the package loaded, it'll still work fine. You just won't get anything nice. But if you have everything set up, what this then does is, this executes and marks, that this was, you're in a file here and you hit this line, and because I'm doing stuff with compound expression and I'm doing stuff with condition, you have to do this little really tricky dance of you have to keep the evaluation semantics the same. And so I'm almost wondering if I should just refuse, like if you want to return, let's say you want to return sequence from a function. It's like, well, you can't just naively rewrite things. You have to be very careful about that. And so I'm just, sometimes I wonder if I should just refuse to instrument functions that are too strange and returning and doing too strange of things. But anyway, so that's, this is kind of here for a reason. And it's very nice to have compound expression, and it's very nice to have, I suppose you could even optimize, this could all be flattened into a single compound expression, obviously. So some things could be cleaned up, but anyway. But yeah, so you have that. This returned some data, that is an object thing. So now let's say I want to actually run that. So I add the thing that I just instrumented, to the path, and I actually evaluate it. So I get a result, and I assume the result's correct. I have no idea. I'm not checking that, but I get a run data object now. And so you do one more step, you process it. And then, so people are probably familiar with gcov and lcov things. This is not a pure Wolfram language solution. I'm still relying on these external tools. So I know that it would be nice to have completely Wolfram language internal, implementations of all of this. Yes, does not need to be said. Just these are very nice and convenient to use, and so I'm using them. So anyway, you have these data files that now exist on your machine, and you have to go out and run some commands. Where even? Oh, I deleted. Oh crap! Right. Am I not even in the right directory now? Because I think I deleted. Well, yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah, whatever. So these files get generated, and you run some more commands. Oh, I thought did I not? Oh, whatever. It is up here. So you do that, and then you actually generate the HTML. Okay. So then I think I have it open here. Yeah. So then this is what you get. You get a nice annotated version of your coverage of the file that you're talking about. And it could obviously be multiple files, but this is an example with coverage information of basically how many times these things got evaluated. And it's like, oh, this never got evaluated. Why is that? Oh, I have, the same definition. Oh, this is actually dead code. And so you could probably remove that. And we don't, it's not like we have some tool that tells you, you have dead code here, remove it. And it would be very hard to do that in the language in some systematic way. And so, the other solution is you build up a test suite, and you actually just wire up all this instrumentation, and you run it, and you get information about the real world running of your code. And then obviously, if you are pointed in the right direction, you can then locally apply local reasoning to figure out this is actually dead code. So, I have 83% coverage of all lines, 80% of all functions, not so bad. I bet if I just removed that, everything would go up to 100. So that'd be very nice. But yeah, so sorry. So that's the idea of instrumentation, and profiling is very similar and is luckily an entirely local Wolfram language solution as well. So similar thing, I can show so instrument. The instrumentation looks different. Oh, it went to a rand. That's why I kept that temp directory. Well, the files don't look so different. I'm not going there right now. Anyway, unless people really want me to, but oh, I think I need to quit anyway, though. I've already, it's all using the same package anyway. Yeah. I'm just going to stop tempting fate and just start over again. Okay, largely same steps. Okay, now, I'm actually evaluating the code. I show the result here. Pretty sane result. You have a bunch of data. You have to post-process it. And then you can actually get a very nice profiling report. Okay, so this is obviously a notebook, and so no external commands or anything needed, but so what this is showing, just in the evaluate, the profile evaluate here, just to do one call, this is all of the functions that ran, their file and line number, the number of times they were called, the number of microseconds spent purely within their own code, and what percentage, across the, more useful number, total number of microseconds per call, or, per call, but, and then self and children microseconds, just in case this is like less useful if you're doing recursive stuff, but, maybe you want to know that, I don't know, whatever. But this is usually what you want to just be looking at. Why in the heck did that take up 99% of the time? It's like, well, well, because I have a pause there is why that took up 99% of the time. Oh, it's almost like I constructed this for a reason, for demonstration purposes. So, and so, you can just do this with regular Wolfram language code is the goal. Stefan in IQD and QA, he's sat down and actually instrumented a lot of the startup code in the kernel already, and has been every so often he runs into issues that that it's broken. I wasn't handling go-to and label correctly. Somewhere in the startup code, people are using go-to and label, and because I wasn't collapsing down all of the compound expressions, they were different compound expressions, and so the go-to couldn't see the label, and blah blah blah. So it's a process of fixing up stuff like that you run into. But he's had a lot of good results from instrumenting just all the startup code and getting good data. And I don't know if it's led to, finding huge swaths of dead code or finding performance bottlenecks, but the goal is to just be able to do this with regular Wolfram language code. So I have no doubt that there could be some crazy pathological example of code you cannot instrument. I have no doubt that that's possible somewhere, but that's not what this is for.
What about the pattern matcher, like replace? Isn't this compound expression thing? It might have an effect there.
What are you saying?
Just thinking aloud, like you have a replace or match q something with a pattern, and you add then you change the expression with the compound expression is not the same.
Well, you're saying if you were doing match q of, like
I do match q new line. No, I do match q new line x new line comma new line pattern, and that x if it becomes a compound expression. I don't know if it can happen. Maybe it cannot happen.
Who is doing that match q?
The down value of the function.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But where?
Yeah.
But how would it know? I mean, how would it even be doing that to begin with?
I
How
was
would,
just thinking aloud. One case where changing the structure of the code might lead to
oh yeah,
problems.
I mean, so this is very fragile in the sense that if somebody's if some code is looking at the down values of some other code and expecting down values of this function to have a certain structure, of course, like this completely breaks that. Like if you just knew I can go immediately, I could say down values of blah, part 2, 3, 2, 4, 7, and somewhere that's hard coded somewhere in some code. Like, yeah, I mean, this would break all of that. So, yeah. So I don't, and there's nothing, I mean, I can't do anything about that. There's nothing to do about that. So
I wasn't thinking of something that far-fetched, but if collatz, for example, n_integer, the definition of collatz and n integer is match q n comma something. Are you putting something that might change what n? I mean, the line with just n?
oh no, I mean, I'm not doing anything with the left-hand side.
No, in the right-hand side, you have collatz n is like match q n comma something.
Mm-hmm. I don't think compound expression, or I mean, I don't think anything changes with that. Like this just all gets, like I don't think anything. I don't think the pattern, I think replacing any left-hand side patterns like that and putting them into here, I think everything is still fine to do. I'm not sure. I can't think if anything would ever be broken because of that. I mean, never say never, but I've not run into any issues where, the patterns from the left-hand side are not getting handled properly yet. So cross my fingers. Now, of course, if you start, if you name your patterns cov backtick function, and stuff like that, like stop doing that. But so yeah, anyway. Yeah, so this is a very powerful paradigm. I don't know how much instrumenting of code there has been in the past, but it's interesting to start thinking about what becomes possible with this, because so I'm doing this as a very clumsy way of you have to rewrite a file to a file. It would be much better if you could just instrument the down values of things directly. No doubt about that. And I would love to do that and work on that, and have that work. And maybe even have that happen just in time. Maybe you don't even have to have a separate step. Maybe it can just happen like in the background when you're trying to do something else. I don't know. And obviously have it be idempotent or not. I don't know. Maybe you wanted to instrument the instrumentation. I don't know who instruments the instrumenters. I don't know. But so then you can start thinking, it's like, well, instead of these functions and lines and things, this looks an awful lot like how you would be able to set breakpoints and debug information even. And so I've definitely been talking with Tom a lot about this kind of stuff, and the future for there are multiple directions that this can go. And one is first using this kind of thing just to get better stack traces, in the sense that down values on the right-hand side somehow somewhere annotating, the name of the function, the function that you're in, and obviously other information, maybe the file and line number that it came from, but keeping track of that instead of just rewriting bodies and rewriting to other right-hand sides. Being able to get a stack trace that says this function, file and line number, this function, file and line number. So useful, so incredibly useful, and crazy that we don't have that. But relatedly, thinking about how code instrumented for debugging specifically would look like, and not, not so dissimilar to, to this on screen. So then, what does that mean? It's like, well, it means you work on a debugger and you use some kind of graphical interface that is tailored for this. And it turns out VS Code is also the flagship implementation of this other protocol called Debug Adapter Protocol, very similar to Language Server Protocol, where it's basically just a front end for, debuggers. Now, the first step of have your own debugger is the big one, but this is pretty much the more modern and easier solution to, having a debugging experience that is not painful like possibly others have been in the past. And I'm just really interested in where this can go. So any questions? That's about that.
Brendan, can you show your way to set the default line width to infinity again quickly? It was slightly too quick for me.
So do you actually want?
Yeah, so it's just with the.
And I guess I forgot to say.
Oh, if you do that before, I tried it after the LSD server. I did it, and that was my mistake. I was trying to get that because I actually want that.
Well, no, I mean you could still. Oh no, this is actually gets a value. So yeah, you need to set that after.
Yeah, it has to be set. Well, you said it before, and I tried setting it after. It didn't seem to work. So great.
Okay. Yeah, and I forgot to say, people might think that my screen is cracked or something, but these are the ruler markers that I use for the formatter. This is the default line width of the formatter, right, which is perhaps limiting for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I love the formatter, but I hate the way it breaks stops. So
yeah, I know. It's
I
like
that setting.
The answer, well, yeah, it's like a two-pronged thing. The answer to making the formatter better shouldn't necessarily be, oh, we'll just set the line width to infinity, because that kind of like, that seems like I'm pushing something under the rug, but yeah, it is at least the current situation that if you don't like how it breaks at lines, then just set it to infinity.
Exactly.
So no, I mean, it is a goal to make, let's say whatever it is, 72 or 80 characters or whatever it is, a much better experience, but yeah, it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Brenton, I just wanted to say that I hadn't seen the instrumentation stuff before. That's really cool, and I'm interested to play with it.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll be I will be trying to wire up a demo of the debugger for the talk, whatever it is, tomorrow or Wednesday. So it'll be like even cooler. So yeah, awesome. Thank you.